Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. It's Fatmata here from Traditionally Inspired Meaningful Art, and today I wanted to go over my hits of 2022. Today I'm going to be talking about the items that I made that I absolutely loved, and I'm going to sprinkle in there some honorable mentions, so I think I have about 10 or so. Now, I'm going to begin with the top of the year. At the very start of the year, I was working on a lot of trousers, and then I sprinkled in there a skirt that I made, and I have a video on it. It's the flamenco skirt. That's what I called it. It was inspired by a designer skirt that I found on Pinterest, and I hacked a pattern I had previously used. It turned out fabulous. I added 2 rows of like flounce details on it. I used 2 prints, 2 Ankara prints, and I sort of, mixed them in together. Every single time I wore that skirt, I felt fabulous in it. It's incredible, and I just love it to bits. It's one of those things that it makes me feel so dressed up, feminine. The dark colors in it make it awesome for autumn and winter, and yet you could still wear it in the springtime. I absolutely love that skirt. The Ankara fabric itself has a decent amount of drape, which I don't say often for Ankara fabric, but this one has like a woven, almost like a, what's the name of it? It almost has like a jacquard weave through it. I think it's more of a bazin fabric, and it's fabulous. So it hangs really beautifully. It swishes around when I walk, and I just feel like I can conquer anything when I wear that skirt. And that's what I need. So I love it. An honorable mention that I wanted to talk about was my S8834. This was on my Make 9, and I actually believe I made it 3 times last year. I made it in, I think, February or March in a dark floral rayon fabric that I picked up at G Street Fabrics, and then I added some lace detailing around the arms. I elongated the ties. It's wonderful. Then I used that pattern and hacked it to do a button front collared shirt out of this beautiful cotton voile. It's a navy and white gingham, and I made just an awesome like tie front top. So I really enjoyed making it out of that, and think I need to revisit that hack on a drapier fabric maybe, and did this awesome like melon sleeve. It was all of the interesting details, but the base of that was the S8834. Then I made it again out of a brown crepe fabric for my girls trip in the summer, and that was fabulous. I've since worn that again a couple of times. So I just loved how versatile that pattern was and how I was able to hack it in so many different ways. In the brown crepe dress as well, I did the similar hack. I added a button front placket to it and also added a collar, so it just felt really dressed up. I remember when I wore it to my cousin's birthday party, my sister saw me in it. She was like, "Don't tell me you made that. You made that?" And I was like, "Yes, I did." So that felt really great. Yeah, so that's an honorable mention. Another hit that I'll talk about is S9114. Now, I had been using this pattern all throughout January because I was using the pants, the trousers from that pattern as a base for my wide leg pants of dreams. That had its issues. But the dress in that pattern is fabulous. So I made it earlier in the year with a crepe fabric from G Street that I had been coveting. It is this dark, really vibrant floral fabric, and it just did wonders for all of the swish and all of the tears of that dress. It's just lovely, and it has a really beautiful cuff. I use these amazing buttons on it. I feel wonderful every single time I wear that dress as well. You can belt it, you can leave it loose. It's wonderful. It can also double up as a cover up. I then used the bodice of that pattern again using a cotton voile that I'd gotten from Mood Fabrics. For this one, I did not make the button front placket go all the way down into the skirt, so I just did the button front placket for the bodice, and then just did a gathered 2-tiered skirt on it. So that was really nice. It was a great way to use a cotton voile that I'd picked up at Mood Fabrics and had you know, been really loving and coveting for a while, and finally had the courage to cut into it. So I love both of those makes. Another honorable mention that I discovered later on in the year is the Gable top. Now, it's classic, it's streamlined, it's not something that I would run home and tell mom about, but now that I have that in my arsenal, I think it's going to be one that I come back to time and time again for the knits that I have in my fabric stash. I'm really excited to make a couple of more Gables, but again, I discovered that pattern, or I finally made that pattern later in the year last year, and I cannot wait to revisit it this year. Another hit from last year was M7974. This is a McCall's pattern, and I wear mine sort of like a pinafore, so I always layer something under it, but I love this dress. I've made it last December in a black linen, and I absolutely adore that, but I tried it again in this really bold Ankara fabric that my aunt actually had gifted me for my wedding. So that was like, what, 6 or so years ago, and it is fabulous. I'm so happy I held on to it until I was finally ready for it. But I think that this pattern, with sort of the fullness of the skirt, the really nice streamlined, you know, bodice of it, because of all of the colors that are in the fabric, I could layer so many different things under it. It's just wonderful. Anytime I wear it, you know, folks are like, oh, it's a very attractive or captivating sort of fabric because of how bold and bright it is. And I really think that I played with the pattern placement just really beautifully. So I like all of the special details that I put into that. I just like the finishing touches that I used in it. I followed Sean from Kittenish Behavior's tutorial for it, which is the same thing that I did when I made the black linen version. So it's lined on the inside, so it just feels really nicely finished, and I felt like I really paid attention to the details in that one, so it made it on my list of hits. An honorable mention would be my Simplicity 1069 wide leg pants. This is another one that I made towards the end of the year last year. I wore it for Thanksgiving, and I just think that this is going to be one that I revisit. Now, it's an honorable mention. I made it twice, and I think both times there's something about them that wasn't quite right. So the first time I made them was out of this fabulous like botanical viscose fabric, and I made my half and half dress out of it last year. So well, 2 years ago now. And last year I made the S1069 wide leg trousers. Well, that viscose, upon washing it again, shrunk on me. Okay, so it's a little bit tight. I also added like a cotton fabric to the hem of it to give it some weight, and that's kind of warped the way that the fabric drapes. So that wasn't the best thing. And I remember saying that even in the video when I was sharing it with you all, like, oh, I probably should have just like if I was going to add some sort of facing to the bottom hem of that, I should have used maybe a rayon, something with a bit of a similar weight to it. Another hit would have to be the Simplicity 8874 knit dress. I made 2 of them last year, and I love them both. I reach for them. They're comfortable, they're well made, and they give me a reason to use my knits, which I'm always looking for, because knits kind of throw me for a loop every now and then. I'm definitely discovering that I'm more of a woven girl, but I want to get down with the knits, because once you find a pattern that works for you, you can whip them up quite easily, which is what I discovered, and I can't wait to make more of them this year. They just are tried and true. The silhouette is amazing. I love the fit and flare of the skirt. It takes up, I would say, a decent amount of fabric, but not a tremendous amount. So it's certainly doable, and one that I am certain I will revisit again. An honorable mention will be the New Look 6667, the yellow dress. So this was my wearable toile for a for a dress that will probably be in the other video of Mrs. But the wearable toile that I made out of this gorgeous like magnolia, you know, crepe fabric that had this yellow base. It was incredible. I tried out a technique using to do like a melon sleeve, and I just feel like it's the silhouette of it is so simple and streamlined. I lengthened mine. It's just beautiful, and I was really happy that I made that dress. Another hit was the Zade Jumpsuit. I used a yellow and brown Ankara fabric that my husband brought back from Guinea. It was gifted to him, which was then gifted to me. It's fabulous, and it was a border print, and I strategically utilized the border print, and I think it turned out wonderfully. It's one of those pieces I wore it to work, and there were so many people in the staff lounge like, wow, that's fantastic. And one of my coworkers told them that I made it, and then it became a whole thing. But needless to say, I was really proud of that jumpsuit after I made it, and that was the important thing. And I just love how, again, thoughtful I was about the pattern placement with all of the things. And the fact that it has no closure beyond the ties. Beautiful. Not my favorite thing to get on and off, but we make it work. I think that I certainly see myself making more Zades in the future, and I can't wait to use a drapier fabric to make it next time. My final honorable mention would have to be, I think, one of my favorite currently button-up shirt patterns, which is McCall's M7838. This was also a pattern that I recently made in the latter parts of 2022. I made two versions. In the wearable 12 version, I used a cotton sateen with a really bold abstract print that once had like a truck imprint on it, and I just used the fabric in such an interesting way. Used some amazing like crystal-y, almost like this charcoaly gray smoked buttons on it. It has this awesome sleeve that's almost fluted. Would you call that a fluted sleeve? Which I lined, and it also has a bow on the sleeve. It's a well-constructed shirt pattern as well. It has, you know, bias binding around the bottom edge. Did I just do the bias binding, or does it call for it? I think maybe it calls for you to just turn it up, but I use bias binding to do the bottom hems. It's just well constructed. It has a yoke. The yoke is done in the burrito method, so that was fantastic. I just really enjoyed making it, and I then made it again out of a cotton voile fabric that I had picked up from Mood Fabrics back in 2021. I made a wrap dress out of it, didn't like it, and didn't wear it as a wrap dress, so then I used the skirt to make the shirt, and I'm just so happy that that fabric now has a new lease on life, and I definitely could see myself revisiting that pattern and or trying out other button-up shirt patterns. It is quite like they don't have a regular sleeve as a part of that pattern set. They have quite interesting sleeves, but none of them just a regular sleeve. So I could see myself sort of using the body of that and then putting on a more simple sleeve, or it's just given me the excitement to like try other shirt patterns. It was a two-piece collar. I was originally really nervous about doing a two-piece collar, and now I like them. So that was fantastic. Now we've come to the very end. Honestly, you all, it was hard to pick like a favorite make of 2022 because I made some pieces that I'm extremely proud of. Some that you didn't even hear in this lineup, and you're probably like, what? So let me know right now in the comments down below which was your favorite of my makes of 2022, if you can recall one that really stood out to you. But the one that I'm gonna have to put, and while the rest of this list was not really in any particular order, like I just started more chronologically and then hopped all over the place. But this one, this make, legitimately, I think is my favorite make of the entire year. And it was my McCall's 9358 silk tiger shirt. Did you guess right? Did you guess right? I mean, I'm really a dress girl at heart. But this silk top did something for me in a time when I needed something to be done for me. It makes me feel so darn fancy, festive, dressed up, dressed down, fabulous. It can do no wrong in my eyes. I love that top. And I mean, it's silk, so it's luxurious. It feels fabulous. While it does have really deep autumnal colors, I wore it year round. It was fabulous with a pair of like white denim. It was fabulous under a pinafore. It's great tucked into some really sleek trousers. It's great just nonchalant on top of blue jeans. I mean, it can do no wrong. I worked with silk. I don't know if I would consider it, it's not a camp style collar, but the collar construction of that was the first that I've ever done in that. I was able to use some incredible star buttons that had been in my stash for years. And I didn't know how I was gonna incorporate that into a make. And after I made it, like I loved it. Every single time I make it, am impressed that I make it. It was one of the earlier set-in sleeves that I made that were just set in and didn't have like gathers around the sleeve cap. And I was like, what the heck is this? It is more challenging to do a proper set-in sleeve than it is to do all of that balloon, poofiness. But I made it through. It looks great. That's like, I shocked myself that it's a button-up top, a button-up blouse that made it in the #1 spot of like my favorite make of 2022. But when I look back at the construction, the attention to detail, I mean, I hand stitched parts of this. I mean, many parts of it, like all of the facing is hand stitched. I use silk for the facing. I used the red silk for the facing. I did just so many things. It's incredible. And I am so pleased that I went for it and that I went for it and bought that fabric, because I remember at the store being like, I don't think I'm cool enough for this sort of fabric. Like, what the heck would I make with this? And there was so little of it. The amount of pattern Tetris I had to play with that and cutting pieces, into parts and putting them together. Like, there's so much that went into that you'll never even notice as someone just looking at it. But I know the amount of work that went into it, and it just makes me so proud every single time I wear it. And that's the way I want my makes to make me feel. And I can't say that for all of my makes. Some of them are like, oh, that's good, that's useful, that is filling in a gap in my wardrobe. I don't really know what gap that top was filling. If it's the joy-inducing gap, if it is the gap of like a blouse that's a bang, that's interesting, that's loud, that's in your face, that does all the things, that's dressed up, dressed down. I mean, dressed up, I'm not gonna wear it to like a gala, but I'd wear it just about anywhere else. It makes me really happy. I mean, that's all I have to say. Your favorite can just be the one that brings you joy. It doesn't have to be the one that you wore the most out of the year. And I think you get to define what your favorite is. But for me, that was absolutely it. Let me know in the comments down below if any of these hits or honorable mentions were also some of your favorites. If you've made any of them and you also love the patterns, please let me know in the comments down below. Until next time, my friends, stay creative. Bye-bye.